The American Revolution occurred between 1765 and 1791, but the story of African American liberation, repatriation, and democracy is often untold. The Americans in the 13 colonies formed independent states that defeated the British in the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783. Gaining independence from the British Crown, establishing the Constitution that created the United States of America, the first modern constitutional democracy. During this period, the British offered liberty and land to all Africans in North America who joined their side of the war, becoming black loyalist soldiers. Ultimately, the British evacuated nearly 3,600 African Americans from New York to Nova Scotia, Canada. Small groups were evacuated and taken by the British to England, where they became known as the Black Poor, in the West Indies, where many were resold into chattel slavery. Several hundred of the Black Poor were repatriated back to Africa by the British abolitionists and government in 1787 from London. Richard Weaver, as an African American originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who found himself among the leaders of the Black Poor settlers of Granville Town in the province of Freedom. He was elected the first governor and served as a trailblazing pioneer during the early years of Freetown. The Black Poor were taken to Sierra Leone, where they founded the short-lived province of Freedom Settlement, which served as the historic precursor for the establishment of Freetown. Unfortunately, the first settlement of Granville Town was burnt to the ground by King Jimmy in 1789, resulting in less than 50 survivors seeking refuge at Fourah Bay, where they remained until joining with the larger Nova Scotian group that arrived in 15 ships on March 11, 1792. The hands-down leader of the second group of repatriates was Thomas Peters, known as the true founder of Freetown, Sierra Leone. Peters fought in the American Revolution as a black loyalist on the side of the British, then petitioned the British government and subsequently went to England to protest on behalf of the black loyalist evacuees before returning with Lieutenant John Clarkson, a Royal Navy officer and abolitionist that served as an agent for the Sierra Leone Company and spearheading the recruitment efforts for repatriation to Sierra Leone. Peters was last enslaved in Wilmington, North Carolina, with his wife and children formerly enslaved in Charleston, South Carolina, and both places are located within the federal Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor. He, like several other key figures among the Nova Scotian settlers, were considered 18th century Gullah Geechee people that played a pioneering role in the early history of Freetown. Having been fully exposed to the revolutionary ideas of national independence and democracy at the foundation of the American Revolution, those that returned in the second group were largely black loyalist veterans of the war that understood clearly what they were promised and fought for. Early on, there were struggles between the Sierra Leone Company, owned by the abolitionists, backed by the government, and the settlers of Nova Scotia. A split occurred between a faction of settlers led by Peters against Clarkson and the Sierra Leone Company's administration of Freetown. They knew they had a basic right to self-determination and democracy. The settlers met in secret and elected Peters the governor of the settlement. Of course, Clarkson was angered and brought up charges of treason against the Peters faction for exercising their own self-determination and demanding the plots of land promised to them in Nova Scotia. Although the election and results were not viewed favorably by the British colonizers, the first ever recorded acts of women's suffrage occurred in Freetown in 1792 as an act of self-determination in defiance of the Sierra Leone Company's claim to undemocratically rule the settlers. This was accomplished in West Africa 128 years before the white women in America were allowed to vote, and 173 years before black men and women were permitted to vote by law without the harassment of white Americans in the U.S. elections. We stand in democratic solidarity with the ongoing struggles for the basic human and civil rights of blacks in America to participate in the political process of voting and representation. In the spirit and remembrance of those first American-born African men and women that sparked the history of women's suffrage as 18th century repatriates to West Africa. The Gullah Nation of North America supports the commemoration of the 57th anniversary of Bloody Sunday and the Selma to Montgomery March. To contact the Gullah Leone Union Mass Media, you may dial us at 843-350-2535. That is 843-350-2535. You may also email us at glumassmedia@gmail.com. That is GLUMASSMEDIA@gmail.com. Our website is www.gullahleone.org. www.gullahleone.org.